Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. So let me know if this feels familiar. Maybe you're an INFJ personality. You've got this thing inside of you. There's this thing that you really want to do. Maybe you've always wanted to do it. Maybe it's a passion. Maybe it's just sharing yourself with the world. Maybe you want to create art. Maybe you want to make a business. But there's something holding you back and you feel stuck. You're having trouble starting. So I've met quite a few INFJs through this channel. I think INFJs are often quite intelligent. They have a lot of emotional intelligence. And generally they have some really good ideas that they want to get out into the world. I think in general, INFJs are very forward-thinking people. So introverted intuition is the dominant function, and it's a bit of a mysterious function. And I hear people talk about it all the time in ways that I think are incorrect. But, introverted intuition, it kind of makes you a very forward-thinking person. You're thinking about the future. INFJs and INTJs are dominant in this area. Excellent planners, kind of sorting through the noise, locking onto these goals and ideas, and then working towards them. And INFJs are really good at working towards goals. So the thing that INFJs can be a little weak in sometimes is actually starting the process. I think a lot of us, once we start, we have an easy time finishing. So the INFJs are in the finisher category of personalities. And, other personalities are in the starters. They're really good at starting things. Maybe they have, 10 or 15 projects that they've started in their place, but then they can't finish them. INFJs are different. We're a little slow to start, but once we start, we can get really obsessed with our ideas, which can be good and bad, right? Just as a quick example, over the winter, I renovated a bathroom in my house. And I've never done it before, so I had so much stuff to learn. But I'm a bit of a research nerd. And, I did every step myself. So I ripped the bathroom back to studs. And I actually had to do some framing and change the layout of the whole bathroom and everything. And it was an unbelievable amount of work. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is once I started, it's like I didn't really like it. Like I don't think that I would be a construction worker as a job. I didn't really love it, but once I started, I became a little obsessed with it and I couldn't stop. And the problem was it was so much work and took me months and months and months. But eventually I finished it. And the sense of relief that I felt when I finished that project, I think that's the thing that I'm generally chasing. I want things done and I want them off my plate so I can start the next thing. And I have a really hard time starting the next thing until the last thing is done. I think it's actually one of the biggest differences between the NFJs and the NFPs. Literally opposite in this area. If you're the kind of person that has a really hard time finishing, and really easy time starting new things. Like you'll almost start things without even thinking about it. That's kind of an NFP thing. And INFJs or ENFJs are a little more, they're reluctant to start a new thing because I think we feel the weight of it. We understand that once we start, it's actually a lot of work. So, it's like, do I want to commit? There's this whole process of starting. But then once we start, we're usually kind of like bulldozers that kind of just bulldoze towards the goal. And NI, introverted intuition, is a very forward-looking, it's almost like a sniper rifle. So once we lock onto that target, we can push towards it. So I know a lot of INFJs with all kinds of cool ideas. Even myself, I have certain things that are inside of me that I really want to do. And it's like, why aren't I doing those things, right? There's things that are more practical that I do get done, like I run my business day to day. But then there's these other things that are almost like passions inside of me. And it's like, I have a hard time getting to it. And it's like, why, right? Why are we having trouble getting to that thing that we know we should be doing? I feel like we all have that thing inside of us. I think there's multiple reasons. And so that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. I think a lot of us are really worried about what people think. I think a lot of us are really worried about doing it right. And then we convince ourselves that there's things we don't have, or, we're not quite ready, or we haven't gained enough knowledge, we haven't got enough skills, or we don't have the right equipment. Just something that convinces us that we're not ready to do it. We can't do a good enough job yet. So let's just wait. I think a lot of us are worried about being misunderstood again, right? INFJs, it's amazing. I think a lot of us are, I don't want to use the word traumatized. Damaged might not be the right word, but I think a lot of us are going through life feeling very misunderstood. I think, if you don't feel a little misunderstood, you probably aren't an INFJ. Of course, there's other personalities that also feel misunderstood. But I think for INFJs, not starting that thing that you've always wanted to start, the fear of being misunderstood is going to be there. So I think INFJs are kind of experts at convincing themselves that they're not ready. It's amazing for myself. Like for example, just tiling the floor on my bathroom project. It's like, I'm not going to start tiling that floor until I've watched so many YouTube videos that I know more about tiling than, even a contractor that might do some tiling now and then. And that is what INFJs do. We can become literal experts in things, but then convince ourselves that we're not ready. We don't know enough. And meanwhile, you've got all these other people out in the world who literally know nothing about certain things, and yet they start. Right? And they convince themselves that they're good at it, even though, they don't know anything. It's like a failure to launch. They have what it takes, but yet they don't do it. I know a lot of us we're a little insecure. We can come across quite strong in certain areas, but then on the flip side, we are sensitive, right? And here's the thing. I think that most INFJs carry some kind of deep wound inside of them. I'm not really sure why that is. Some people think that INFJs are created out of wounds and trauma, whereas I think maybe it's more likely that we're not really fitting into the world most of the time, so we become a little damaged as we try to fumble our way along. But here's the thing. That often gives us a certain type of insight, a certain perspective on the world, maybe even, skills that other people don't have. And in that weakness is where we can find our strength. So here's the thing that I think that all of us as INFJs need to internalize. We are not here to fit in. We're not supposed to fit in. If you are an INFJ and you are fitting in, I would say you're suppressing yourself. I actually heard C.S. Joseph say this a long time ago, and I know some people, whatever, they don't really like C.S. Joseph. But, I like to listen to all kinds of different perspectives. And this is one thing he said in his INFJ video one time. He said, INFJs are the tip of the spear, and we are here to move society forward. And the thing is that we're kind of the people that see through the noise, and a lot of times people don't really appreciate that in us, right? If we can embrace that we're not here to fit in. We are here to build. We are here to innovate. And we are here to push the world forward. If you can embrace that as an INFJ, I think you can become quite unstoppable. But in order to do that, you kind of have to get over that people pleaser tendency. You got to push aside that obsession with what people think. It's really hard. It's something I struggle with immensely. But it's also something that I've really been working on, right? Can I do that thing that I really want to do, even though here's some people that don't really like what I'm doing? So if INFJs stopped hiding, if we started sharing and we started creating, I think that we could take over the world, or at least positively impact the world. It's not about finding your calling, it's about creating your calling. So here is the first mind shift I had to go through when I first started thinking about this, thinking about the thing that I really want to do, the ideas that I want to put out there. A lot of INFJs, I think, are kind of obsessed with the meaning of things, the meaning of the world, the meaning of the words that people are using, the meaning underneath the words, like things like subtext. What is this person really saying? INFJs are really worried about meaning and purpose. And I think for a lot of years, I was sitting around waiting for meaning to arrive, right? Almost like meaning was going to find me. And I'm not sure, maybe let me know in the comments if this is a thing or not. But I wonder if, I was raised in a very strict religious way. And it was almost like a meaning was handed to me. It's almost like that's what maybe religions do, is they kind of assign meaning to you. It's not really your job to figure it out necessarily. It's just your job to fulfill it, right? Maybe you've got a gift that was given to you, and now it's your job to use that gift, right? I can see this a lot in a lot of religious people, which is why I've started to wonder if it is sort of a religious or cultural thing that we've been told that meaning will find us. So this is my own personal philosophy, but what I've kind of decided over the last few years, and this idea comes from existentialism, is that you don't find meaning, you create it. So actually, it's really quite simple. If there's something that you really want to do, well, then it's your job to do it. No one else is going to do that for you. If you're a really good singer, it might be nice to be discovered, right? Or maybe like you end up on like American Idol and then you just become a huge music star. And that is possible. But the more likely scenario is you have to put yourself out there. You have to create yourself. You have to do the work. So I saw this Charles Bukowski quote the other day. I actually kind of like Charles Bukowski's poetry. He's kind of like a depressed kind of guy, and obviously like an alcoholic and maybe a womanizer and all these things, but there's still something that I really enjoy about reading Charles Bukowski. So this was the quote I saw, and it said, "I was waiting for something extraordinary to happen, but as the years wasted on, nothing ever did, unless I caused it." And so Charles Bukowski is a really cool example, I think, of a guy who spent most of his life, I think he worked for the US Post Office and made it really kind of nowhere with his art until I think he was in his 50s or something like that. And eventually got out of the post office and started making his art. He wrote all the books of poetry. So unlike a lot of people, he didn't really become well known and famous until quite a bit later in life. And it's a good example of you can really recreate yourself at any point. You don't have to be 20. You don't have to be 30. A lot of times I think we convince ourselves that the only way to succeed is to start when you're young. Well, Charles Bukowski is a very famous poet. Didn't start until quite late in life. And the thing about that quote right there is that it basically just says you have to create it. You can't just sit there and wait for someone to give it to you. What are those ideas that you want to put out into the world? What do you think the world means? Share that. So that was the first thing. You don't find meaning, you make it. So the second thing I want to talk about is this INFJ thing, and I feel like we all do it. We convince ourselves that we're not ready. This has been a constant battle for me. So lately I've been writing short film scripts. I really want to shoot some actual movies. Write some stories, shoot some movies. And it's amazing all the things that my brain comes up with to convince myself not to do this. So I've got a bunch of scripts, and now I need to pick one that I've written, and I need to shoot it. Oh, maybe I need a little more time to refine this script, Oh, maybe I need this particular actor, this person. Oh, I need to wait till they can help me. Or, it's amazing. It's always like this future thing. It's like, I'm not ready right now, but maybe I will be. So don't worry, I'm going to start. Saying that you're not ready is a mask for fear. And the reality is it's a lot easier to say, I could do something, than to say, I did it and it sucked. And maybe that's really what we're doing. We're just worried that what we're going to make is going to suck, because I think, we tell ourselves that we're good. We tell ourselves that we have good ideas. Maybe you're watching a movie and you're like, oh, I could do that. Or maybe you're some kind of a painter and you're like, you know what, I could paint that. And, I actually know somebody in my real life where they're always saying that. They're like, oh, I could make that if I wanted to. Or I could do that, if I had the time. And I'm always like, could they actually do that? Or is it kind of a cop-out, right? It's easy to say you could do it if you wanted. It's actually just a lot harder to do it and then live with the fact that maybe it wasn't as good as maybe you wanted it to be. And so the reality about being ready or not ready is it's almost arbitrary. You're probably ready right now. And that's the truth. You are ready. I'm just actually going to say it to you right now. I'm going to say it to myself. You are ready right now. So start. So the third thing I wanted to mention about INFJs and, our resistance to starting is that the introverted intuitive process is this very focused long-term vision, making a plan and following it kind of process. You can see into the future and you can see what is going to happen and what you can do, and you know how to get that thing. But it's also a bit of a trap because NI is this very big picture thinker type process. And I think a lot of us, we can see the whole plan, we can see the whole picture, and now it becomes overwhelming to actually lay that first brick. I think a lot of us just rather live in that kind of abstract world where it's almost like it's all in our minds. But the practicality of getting down to business, grabbing that brick and starting that wall, right? It kind of gets out of the NI and into the SE world, which ironically is an INFJ's inferior function. So it is kind of the thing that we want to push aside sometimes. It's the actual physical thing. Like if there's art, it's the physical sensory experience to create it. If you're renovating a bathroom like I was, right? It's the actual ripping drywall down. You're not really in the planning phase anymore. So here is my advice to INFJs. Just start small. Don't worry if it's perfect. Just lay that first brick, lay a second brick. And then once you've got 2 bricks, lay a third brick and just keep going. And if it sucks, don't worry about it. It'll get better as you go. So another bathroom renovation example is so funny because I said this every single time I'm drywalling. By the time I got to that last sheet of drywall, I had finally figured out how to drywall. And then I look back at my first sheet and I'm like, oh, I wish I really would have known how to do this when I started my first one. Or those first few tiles that I laid, right? I'm like, oh, I wish I would have known what I know after doing all the tiling. And that's just the reality. It's okay. Just start. And you know what? It's not going to be perfect. I think a lot of us just forget that the vision, it's not real. It's just a blueprint, right? And it's not real until you start. So you need to tell yourself, it's not real until you start. Actually start the thing, lay that first brick. So the fourth thing I want to mention here, it is related to the last thing. But it's basically like stop worshiping the masterpiece. And it's sort of like the INFJ that has this perfect idea, this perfect project, and maybe it is a little too big to do right now. It'd be like right now, let's say I want to shoot a $5 million budget feature film. Maybe that's too big. And if I get too obsessed with that one idea, I literally never will start. So sometimes you have to just admit, like, okay, I'm going to do that in the future, but you know what? What's a step I can take right now? Maybe I shoot some short films. So for example, maybe a musician wants to they want to sell at an arena and they want to perform to a large crowd. Well, guess what? You're going to have to start by booking that first small gig. Maybe you don't even get paid. Maybe it's just you walk into a bar and you're like, hey, here's a little demo. Can I perform? And that first time you perform, it's not going to be a masterpiece. I often say this to people actually when they want to start making YouTube videos. I get a lot of people asking me that because of this channel. You won't make a good video until your 10th video, maybe your 20th video. So just start and get those first 20 out of the way. And then when you've made your 20th, you'll look back and be like, oh, that first video sure was bad. And you know what? You can delete it at that point. I think it's actually healthy for us to share our work and get used to the idea that we're not taking over the world with every piece, right? I think a lot of us get stuck into this idea that we've got this one idea and we're going to put it out there and it's going to change the world and we're going to become rich and famous and everything's going to be amazing. The reality is it doesn't work like that. You are going to create that first piece and probably nobody will care. And maybe that's depressing to some people, but maybe it's not depressing because there's no pressure. And so it's one thing I've realized while doing jiu-jitsu. I've been just over a year and a half. And something that my coach has said is, he's like, don't worry that if somebody submits you, maybe somebody chokes me and I got to tap. Somebody does an arm bar on me and I have to tap. He's like, there's literally no pressure for a white belt. Just tap. Everybody expects you to suck. And I think it's really good advice. When you first start something, just kind of embrace the sucking. Don't worship the masterpiece quite yet. Work up to it. So the reality is, I made this video for other people, but I'm talking to myself as well. Like, there are things that I want to do that I'm having trouble doing. And like I'm the type that's more likely to read another book about screenwriting than to actually shoot my script, right? Like I love all these self-help books like The War of Art. That's a really good book. Or Steal Like an Artist. I really liked that book. Or there's actually a book that I read called Do the Work. And it's almost like you don't even need to read the book because it's basically what I'm talking about here. It's just do the work. And that's the most important part about being an artist or being an entrepreneur. It's actually doing the work. So if you made it this far, here is an exercise for you. Look inside yourself. Look at that thing you've always wanted to do. Let's say you want to write a book. Go right now and write a paragraph. Write the opening paragraph. Write a page. One thing I heard from Tim Ferriss, who I believe is an INTJ, is that he has trouble with this same thing. He's a famous author. One of his rules is, I believe it's write 2 crappy pages a day. So that's basically what he tells himself he has to do. It's like, just sit down and write 2 crappy pages. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be masterpieces. But all you have to do is write 2 crappy pages. And I actually really like that advice because it kind of takes the pressure off. It's like, just go do some work and don't worry if it sucks. And so that'd be my recommendation for you. Let's say you want to make a YouTube video. Just go make one. Who cares? Hold your phone up, sit in front of a window. Actually, right now, I'm sitting in front of a window. Hold your phone up and record a little video. Post it. And then don't think about it anymore. Maybe somebody will watch it, maybe somebody won't. And then make the next one. And just keep going. And so I'm talking to myself right now too. I've got this script. It's called OK. I've actually written about 5 different scripts. So I've kind of circled and I've decided that this is the one I'm going to shoot. I think it's the easiest one to shoot. And you know what? I'm just going to shoot it. And maybe everybody thinks it sucks. And that's fine because I'm going to make my 10 short films to learn the process. Just like when I tiled that floor, the first tile I put down, I didn't know what I was doing. But by the last tile, I knew something about tiling. And I actually think it's really good practice for our egos to just understand that you're not good at something and you're getting better. And I kind of wonder sometimes if this whole obsession with worrying about what people think, it's this fear that maybe we're not that good. And maybe like the reality is we kind of just have to just be fine with it. Maybe you're not that good yet, but you know what? Maybe someday you will be. Anyway, I hope this did something for you. Let me know in the comments what you think. I want to make more INFJ videos, I've decided, but I really want to focus more on these kinds of topics. Like, I want to help INFJs move forward, achieve their goals, get moving on some things. And so here is my challenge to you if you've made it this far in the video. Go into the comments right now, post the thing that you really want to do. And then post a schedule. When are you gonna post your first video? When are you gonna write your first page of your book? And then try to make some kind of a plan to stick with it. INFJs are good at making plans. Maybe you decide, I'm gonna write 2 pages a week. Maybe you're gonna write 2 pages a day. It's just some kind of plan to keep that momentum going forward. And it's amazing really how our brains can kind of take over once the momentum starts. Anyway, hopefully that was useful. Have a great day.